Hi guys, and welcome to Escape Wheel Watch Views. My name is Steve, and today we're reviewing the IXDAO 6542. I received a pretty nice discount on this model. However, it's not going to sway my review one way or another. I'm going to give it to you straight every single time on this channel, and I promise that. And if by the end of this review you want to pick one of these up, I'm going to be leaving a link down in the video description. That is an affiliate link. You guys don't pay any extra. I just get a little bit of a kickback, and it allows me to keep the channel running. The retail price for this watch is about $330 US. That's before any taxes, sales, coupons, etc. IXDAO, they do participate in the sales. There's currently a sale going on, and it is $191. So yeah, you can get a pretty good discount on this thing if you're patient and wait for some of those sales. The watch comes in two different colorways, a black dial and a white dial. I think they both look really good, and I struggled to choose one, but I'm pretty happy that I went with this one. The watch case is made of 904L stainless steel. Well, more on that in a little bit. It has a sapphire crystal with AR coating, a sapphire bezel insert, screw down crown, screw down case back, 100 meters of claimed water resistance, and the watch is powered by the Seiko NH34 automatic movement. So in some of their literature, IXDAO said that it took them 1 year from the beginning to the end for the development of this watch. It's a tribute to the 6542. They're not really claiming homage or anything like that. They are huge fans of the history and the background story of the 6542, and they wanted to replicate that and kind of show off their talents with a watch like this. So I say we dig in. Let's see if it was worth the wait. But before we do a quick wrist check today. Wearing the San Martin SN0 141. If you haven't seen the unboxing for this, go check out the unboxing up here. But I'm going to flip this around, and I'm going to do a review on this one next. So yeah, keep an eye out on the channel for that one. All right, so let's get into the dimensions. Yeah, a bezel diameter of 37.9 millimeters, case thickness of 13.4 millimeters, 20 millimeter lug width, 48.2 millimeters lug tip to lug tip, total length of 51.4 millimeters, and sized up for my 7.5 inch wrist with two links removed. It weighs 129 grams. So we got 38 millimeters at the bezel. The case is 37 millimeters, 48 lug to lug. Some people are going to complain about that, but that is spot on to the original. So yeah, pretty cool that they kind of went with that. I like the look of the elongated lugs. I know that's going to put a lot of people off, but this thing does wear really, really good. You can see there a nice thin mid case with some nice turn down to the lugs as well. You do have protruding male end links there, but I think they kind of disguise themselves pretty good, and it's really not terribly long at 51. So yeah, for me, this thing wears absolutely wonderful. For someone with like, I don't know, maybe like close to 6 inch wrist, it might be a problem, but for the most part, I think you're going to be fine with it. So I'm going to go outside right now and throw it on my wrist for you. So here we are on my 7.5 inch wrist, and for me, it wears great. I love the size of this, that 48 lug to lug and 38 diameter. It's one of my favorite sizes. I know it seems a little bit long, but I'm actually pretty happy with the way it looks, and I do like this long sloping lugs. I think they're very nice looking, but that's just me. Again, nice slim mid case there, nice sloping lugs as well. Lots and lots of polished bits on this, just playing beautifully under this tree here. AR coating, it's not the best that I've seen, but it's definitely usable and serviceable. Keeps the dial nice and legible as well. So overall, I'm pretty satisfied with the way this looks, the way this wears. Yeah, it looks really, really good. And popping out in some direct sunlight here, you can see plenty of AR coating, I think. And it just looks great. You can kind of see now that the bezel is blue. It's a very, very dark blue, but it is definitely blue. But yeah, overall, I just think it looks really good. The case finishing is superb, and it just, yeah, I mean, they did a really good job with this watch. All right, let's go throw it on some straps, and we'll get back to this review. So I think if you're not going to wear it on the bracelet, I think it deserves a nice vintage leather strap. So here's one that I got off AliExpress. Pretty nice strap. I'll leave the link for this down below, but I think it looks pretty good. Faux patina kind of matches the stitching on it as well. Nice taper to it, nice texture. I think it looks good. And maybe you don't like the black strap, you want to throw it on a brown strap. I think the brown actually looks pretty good with this. Actually, I think the darker browns look a little bit better, but I just like the way this one looks with the nice taper. This is a vario strap. I'll leave the link for that one down below as well. But yeah, really happy with the way this thing wears, with the way it looks on other straps. And we'll throw it on one more strap and we'll get back to this review. And here we are on a nylon strap, 2 layers underneath the watch there. It's a pretty thin nylon strap, so it's still sitting really, really nice on wrist. And I do like this kind of dark gray color with that bezel. I think it just looks really good. It's really, really good. What do you guys think of that? All right, let's go back inside and let's get back to this review. right, so let's talk about the case and the case finishing. First things first, 904L steel. So this is the same steel that Rolex uses. Typical steel is 316L. So this is more corrosion resistant. It's actually a softer steel as well, so it takes to a polish nicer. It takes to a brushing nicer as well, and I guess it's easier to polish out scratches if they do happen, and they're going to happen more often because it's just softer steel. So that's just something to know, whether you like that or not. I think another selling point is that the color of it. It's a more white steel. So here is the Roland F023. You can kind of see right there. This kind of has like a goldish tint to it, where the 904L steel watch is more white. So it's a very subtle difference, and you really probably aren't going to notice it. And if you just have the watches by themselves, but having them side by side, it's a pretty apparent that it's definitely a whiter material. So yeah, just something to know. I do like the 904L steel. This is my second 904L steel watch. I don't know how much it costs extra over 316, so I'm not going to say whether it's worth it or not. But yeah, I do like the steel, and I think it does look more premium when you get it out in some sunlight and some direct light. So yeah, just something to consider. The watch case is a mixture of brushed and polished surfaces, as you've probably already seen. But you can see there, you got a nice angular brushing or circular brushing on the tops of the lugs. The brushing is super consistent, super fine. It looks excellent. Looks really, really good. Very happy with it. Flipping it to the case sides here, nice high polished case sides. Again, it takes to a polish beautifully. So this is just super smooth. As you can see there, it just looks fantastic. You even have little polished chamfers there as well. So it kind of breaks up like the sharp corners and stuff. I think it looks fantastic. They did a really good job on it. Crown side here, you got a nice signed crown there, fully polished, good size, good grip. No real issues with that. You do have drilled lugs as well, which is nice to see. And I love this case profile. Nice thin mid case there. That's kind of the selling point of this watch, is that they just almost got this thing perfect when it comes to the profile, the side profile of it. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. Flipping it around to the case back, you can see here, fully polished case back, kind of your coin edge style, which you guys know I'm not a fan of. Circular brushing on the bottom of the lugs. This bottom edge here, it's honed down nicely. It's not too sharp or anything like that. You can see solid end links as well. Overall, very satisfied with this. I've got no real complaints with it. All right, so let's talk about the bezel on this thing. So the bezel is actually pretty interesting. They went with, true to the original, they went with a tin bronze bezel itself, and then they electroplated it steel. So I guess over time, over a long period of time, you're going to wear away that electroplating, and you'll see the bronze there. So that's something that the original watches show from the 60s. So if you are going to keep this watch for a really long time, I guess, you could start to see that wear kind of similar to what the original one is. I think the bezel itself looks fantastic. Nice sharp machining there, really good grip. Well, I mean, the grip is it's not great, I'll say that. The grip isn't great just because the edge is so narrow. I typically like to grip my bezels up here, and I'm just not getting enough of the bezel itself to turn it. I mean, you definitely still can. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's got, I think, the perfect resistance, but I tend to start grabbing the watch a little bit more on the edges here, and no problems. And especially with straps, I can come up here and it's not an issue at all. So you guys can see it is a bi-directional bezel. Really happy with that. It's a 60 click bi-directional, which is interesting. I wasn't really expecting that, but I've been using this as a timer, as well as timing time zones. I have really only time Germany time zone, and they're 6 hours ahead of us. So yeah, it's worked out for me. If you're kind of one of those people that needs a 24 click or a 48 click for half hours, this might not work perfectly. But I think that's pretty rare. So I'm okay with their 60 click bidirectional. It feels good. It looks good. Nice and positive feelings. Like I said, the resistance is just spot on. And then I've been using this as a timer. So yeah, I think it works really good. The bezel insert on this thing, it lines up absolutely spot on. It's a sapphire bezel insert, and it looks fantastic. It's kind of got this convex surface on it, so it's rounded. It looks amazing. Looks really good. Nice sharp transitions there too, and the transitions are just in this perfect spot. It's a very, very dark blue color up here, and I can really only show that by bringing in a black bezel. So you can see there, it's pretty clear, at least to me, that these are It's a dark blue, and the Lume shot will prove that. It is supposed to be dark blue. It definitely looks black for most of the time, I would say, but then you definitely know that it's not quite black, if that makes sense. So yeah, really, I don't care whether it's black or blue. I think it looks good. I think it looks really good. I like the red color as well. They did a really good job on this bezel insert. I think it's fantastic. I think the bezel itself is really, really good. And let's talk about the crystal. Test it for sapphire. This is a sapphire crystal and a sapphire cyclops. So that's really nice to see. Sapphire crystal, sapphire cyclops, you can see here, it is a very mild but really nicely done box dome sapphire. And you can see at the extreme angles there, you can see some distortion. So this does look a lot like an acrylic crystal. I think they chose a perfect one. The cyclops is perfectly centered. It's a really tiny one. So it doesn't magnify a whole lot. I'd say maybe like 1.5. But I think it fits in that cyclops perfectly. Magnifies the date nice and clear. It's got plenty of AR coating on it as well, the crystal and the cyclops. So I have no issues with that at all. That distortion there looks really good. Sometimes on these box dome sapphires you get a nice clear dial all the way at the edges, but this one does get a little bit of distortion. That just tells me that the curvature of the top of the crystal and the curvature of the bottom of the crystal are not concentric. So they're just curved a little bit differently, and that's when you get that nice distortion there. So usually I'm not a fan of that, but in this instance, I think they did it perfectly. It's very subtle, and you don't really notice any double reflections or anything like that. So I am really happy with the crystal on this thing. I think it looks fabulous. They chose a really good one. All right, we're going to get in real close. We'll talk about the dial on this thing, and the dial is absolutely fantastic. They did a really good job with that. I kind of wish they would have gone with a glossy black dial. It's more true to the original, but I think the one that they chose looks really good. Faux patina, it's not for everybody. It is pretty heavily cooked on this model, in my opinion. They could have toned it down a little bit. I actually think it looks a little more toned down in the camera footage here, at least what I'm seeing through the camera, than it does in real life. It does have a pretty heavy orange tint to it. But I think the printing is done really nice, really crisp. You have that half kind of railroad track around the outside. You have this word homage down here at the bottom. Some people, they balked at that when they saw it. They balked at a lot of the text on the dial. But that homage there, you barely see that. It is super tiny, and most of the time it's obscured by the crystal. I've got no issue with it at all. I don't even know why they put it there. You have your IXDAO branding there, and then it does say fans of 6542. It's kind of a tribute to the 6542. They're showing that they love that watch. Obviously, you can't buy that watch, at least not economically. And so they wanted to pay tribute to that watch. And I think they did a pretty good job with it. I do like their logo. I like their branding. I've got no problem with that. That's just me. It's going to be a personal thing. Down here at the 6 o'clock position, you have your collar GMT, and then you have your water resistance in red, and then you have your smiley face self-winding. So yeah, I think the text on this, it's a little too much. I personally don't mind it. It's so small that I never even notice it. It just kind of balances and fills out the empty space in the dial. So for me, it's a non-issue. I know for some people it is a complete deal breaker, but for me, I have no problem with it. Obviously, I'd like it to say something else or not say anything there at all, but it is what it is. I think it fills out the dial nicely. Getting to the indices, they are printed on just like the rest of the dial. There's no applied aspect of this thing, but they're really nicely done, and you can see here there's plenty of depth to those indices. I'm looking at the 12 o'clock position here. It's got plenty of height to the lume, so there's plenty of lume on this thing. We'll talk about the lume in just a second. The handset that they chose, it's a PVD gold. They look great, perfect size in my opinion. I believe this is actually a smaller dial based on the date position here. I believe this is a smaller dial than the typical 28.5. I'm not going to open this up, but yeah, that's just my gut feeling just based on that date position. But I think they chose a really good handset. You can see it reaches right out, actually past the minute track. Hour hand, good size. And then you got your tiny GMT hand, which is again what the original was like. So yeah, really cool that they did that. They left the gold tip to it as well. So yeah, I'm really happy with that. They do have a red tip on the second hand, which I don't think was part of the original. I actually kind of like that. It definitely makes it stand out. The second hand does get lost from time to time just because it's so small, but with that red tip there, I think it looks good, and I think it kind of helps it stand out, and it is loomed as well, so that's nice to see. Like I mentioned, the date window there, really happy to see that. We'll talk about the date window here in a second. It is a custom date window, and I think people who really enjoy the Rolex are going to enjoy a feature of this. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. But yeah, really happy with the dial on this thing, really happy with the lume on this thing. So I'm going to pop up a lume shot here. You can see it against a couple other watches in the collection. You can definitely see that bezel is blue. The bezel kind of glows really fairly strong right off the bat. It does fade pretty quickly. The background of the bezel, I should say. The rest of the dial, the hands, they've got a nice healthy application. I was pretty impressed with the lume on this thing. I was able to read it in the middle of the night. So yeah, overall I'm satisfied with the lume on this watch. All right, so let's talk about the movement in this thing. So the movement is the Seiko NH34. They make mention in this little pamphlet here. So they ship with this kind of cool little pamphlet. It's very vintage looking and feeling. But they mention right on the second page here, chronometer accuracy. So subject to rigorous testing, ensuring unparalleled accuracy and reliability in timekeeping. So they're claiming chronometer accuracy with this thing. They're not saying they got it tested, but they tested it themselves. They regulated the movements, and yeah, this is how mine has been running, and I see no problems with that. Obviously, this is definitely within chronometer accuracy. It's been running pretty much spot on my winder, on my wrist. So yeah, I think they did a really good job regulating the NH34 and really took their time with it. So I'm really happy with the accuracy of this thing. So it is the NH34. It's 21,600 beats per hour, so 6 ticks per second, 40 hours of power reserve. It hacks, hand winds, quick set date, quick set GMT hand. So it does everything you need it to do, and it does it very nicely. You can see here it is operated by this 3 o'clock screw down crown, nicely signed like I mentioned earlier. Really happy with that. Nice smooth screw in, screw out action. First position is your hand winding, no issues there. Second position is your date change. So actually I'm going to move the hands out of the way real quick. So the date change on this thing. So they do have a custom date wheel on this, and they mimic the Rolex font. So really happy that they chose that font. You can see here, you also have red and black. So red for the even days, black for the odd days. Really cool. It saved me a couple times. I was not sure if it was the 10th or the 11th one day, and I remember it being a black date, so I knew it was the 11th. So that's kind of a cool little party trick, and you can see there the nice open 9s, the open 6s as well, I think is a big one. Not too much into the fonts that they use, but you can see there they chose some good fonts. They're all centered really nicely, and I am very, very happy with that. I think it looks good, and I also think that the date window is a creamy background. I can't really tell, but it kind of just appears to be creamy and not like a stark or a pure white. So just that a little attention to detail, it's really appreciated. I think they did a really good job on that date window. So rolling it back, you change the date. Rolling it forward, you jump the GMT hand. It's got a nice crisp little click into place. Yeah, really, really happy with that. I think they did a good job with it. I like these movements. I have no issues with them, especially when they're running so well. Pull it out to the third position. It hacks the movement every time. This is where you set your time. Everything functions as it should. Nice, strong crown there. No wobble. Pushing it in engages the second hand every time. No problems there. And a nice, smooth screw in action. I have zero complaints with the movement with the crown on this thing. It's excellent. All right, so let's talk about the bracelet on this thing. So the bracelet is as well 904L steel. So really happy with that. It's your typical 5-link style bracelet, polished in the middle, brushed on the outers. The brushing and the polishing is done to a very high standard. This is St. Martin level in my opinion. I've had zero complaints with it. It's done really nicely. This bottom edge is rounded off nicely as well. Polishing on the sides, again, done very nicely. You have screw pins for adjusting. I removed 2 links for my 7.5-inch wrist. You have solid end links. All of these links are solid as well. You do have male end links, so you can see it does stick out just a little bit, but I think it's manageable for most wrists. The nice tight tolerances in here. They got nice strong spring bars as well, which is nice to see. Drilled lugs for easy strap changes. I've got no complaints with this. You can see the fitment of the curvature of the lugs there. It does fit pretty good. It's not quite, there's just a teeny tiny lip there. But definitely 100% better than what Rolex was providing back in the day. So yeah, really happy with the end links on these things. Really happy with the bracelet on this thing. 20 millimeters, it tapers to 16 millimeters at the clasp. The clasp itself, it's a pretty simple clasp. I believe this is just a 3/16 steel clasp. I'm not really positive though. I can't really tell. I didn't read anything in the page or anything like that it was 904L. It just kind of looks like it has a little bit of a brown tinge to it. So I'm just kind of thinking that it's 316L, but I can't really confirm. That really nice satinized brushing on the top. Got your IXDAO logo there, which I really like. Brushed on the sides, nice polished chamfer there. 3 levels of micro adjust, 2 button pushers, fully milled on the inside. Nice tight tolerances all through here. I've got no complaints with the clasp other than just a little tiny complaint, I guess. Right here, you can see there's a little slop there. Not really sure why it's like that, but it is. It doesn't really translate to rattling on the wrist, so it doesn't bother me too much. It's just something that I noticed somebody else complain about, and then I noticed it as well. But it's really never affected the functionality of the watch or the comfort or it didn't really make it sound cheap either. So it's not a huge negative. I do wish they would kind of fix that a little bit, but yeah, it's not a huge deal to me. Overall, pretty satisfied with the clasp on this thing. I would obviously like an on the fly clasp, but for something like this, I don't need it. I like the size of this thing. It's nicely rounded. I think they chose a really good bracelet for this watch. I've got minimal complaints with it. It's super, super comfortable. I wore this thing pretty much all weekend. I was in the pools. I was playing with the kids. I was doing a little bit of yard work with it, and it held up great on the bracelet too, and it was very comfortable through the whole thing. So yeah, I've got no complaints with the bracelet on this thing. They chose a really good one. So there you go, guys. That is the IXDAO 6542. This is, in my opinion, the best homage or clomage of the Rolex 6542. There is a couple other ones out there. I think WMT, they make one. And I believe True North is going to make one or is making one currently. This one is excellent, though. 904L steel, you got a fantastic crystal, an awesome bezel, great bezel action, really comfortable bracelet and clasp. The movement has been accurate, very, very accurate. They got the date window, little tweaks like that. It's just stuff like that puts IXDAO right at the top of my list for Chinese watches. They're fantastic. Little attention to details, what kind of sets them apart from everybody else. And they do a fantastic job. Their finishing is fantastic. Their crystals are awesome. They give you good lume. Yeah, this thing, it's been very, very nice. And I'm really happy that I was able to pick this up and show it off to you guys. So I think that's it for my review. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.